Started. Thank you. For those who don't know me, this is probably an introduction. I would love to meet these committee meetings in person, but unfortunately, due to the pandemic, they're all being done via Zoom. But I want to thank the upcoming committee members for thanking you for wishing to join this. And what I'd like to say as a town administrator, that you're going to be making a difference. And I think that's very important. My name is Tom Younger. I'm your interim town administrator. I've been here, I think I'm going on to my 5th week here, and I will be working with the committee as long as I'm a member here until the permanent town administrator is chosen. Due to our charge, the TA is an ex officio member. And I'll be very appreciated to meet all of you and learning about you. So I want to thank you for being on the committee. First, why don't we go around and introduce the 6 members to the committee, and also the other member of the committee, the Deputy Chief DiNapoli. So why don't we start with to my left, Pat.
Oh, okay. My name is Pat Purdy. I've lived in Wenham since 1976, so that's a long time. We raised our 2 kids here. I've served on many boards and communities. Most recently, I was the chair of the Hamilton Wenham Library Board of Trustees, and I'm very committed to Wenham and so many levels. And I think this is an important board, and I look forward to serving.
Okay, thank you. Sam?
Sure thing. Sam Nordberg. I'm a clinical psychologist. I'm the chief of behavioral health at Reliant Medical Group, which is it's a large multi-specialty integrated care practice serving about 350,000 patients in the greater Worcester area. If you're wondering if that's a terrible commute, it is, but I haven't had to make it for 8 months, which is pretty awesome. And I practice with patients, but the principal focus of my career is on care model redesign. I work with the state a little bit on mass health, on mental health parity, on advocating for mass health patients with mental health needs. And my clinical area of specialty is on victims of trauma. I spent 4 years working at the VA with veterans coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan. And I started my whole career as an EMT in Brooklyn, and would be happy to tell folks that story when we get through the pandemic, and I can buy you a coffee or a beer. I serve on a variety of boards and committees, mostly oriented around health and mental health. And I'm really excited to be a part of this.
Thank you very much, Sam. Next, we'll go to Martha Brennan.
Hi, everyone. I'm Martha Brennan. I have lived in Wenham since 1998. I had 2 kids. One of them went to school with Tova, so I'm familiar with her. And I work at the community house. I'm the director of finance and operations there. So professionally, I do finance, and my work in the sort of social justice space. I'm on the executive committee of the newly formed NAACP branch here, and I have worked in food insecurity with homeless dinners in Beverly. And I've also worked with an NGO that raises money for a rural health initiative in El Salvador. So excited to work with this group, and looking forward to the work we're going to do.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Tova Crystal. Tova, if you could say a few words.
Hi, so my name is Tova. I've lived in Wenham since like 2006, and I currently work at the Danvers YMCA, which is where I am right now, as the youth center coordinator, and I've been here for about a year. And I moved, so I went to school. I graduated from Hamilton Wenham Regional in 2014, and I went to school for 4 years studying political science and Spanish at St. Michael's College. And I moved back to Wenham in 2018, and so I've been in the area since. And I haven't been on any committees, but I was like a member of my campus's Peace and Justice Club for 3 years. So I am familiar with kind of like sitting like, you know, with the committee style and like kind of planning and processing what's going on, planning those events. That's kind of my experience with that. But yeah.
Thank you. And Tova, my daughter's a graduate of St. Michael's also.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah.
that's so cool. When did she graduate?
Psychology degree, 2011.
Okay, cool. Yeah, my older brother was there at that same time. Actually, I just missed her, but that's cool.
You're making me feel old.
No.
Next, we have our ex officio, not the ex officio member, the member by designation, Deputy Chief DiNapoli.
Hey, how you doing, folks? I'm psyched to be on board. I've been 25 years full-time law enforcement. Came to Wenham about 3.5 years ago, and started as a captain, got changed to deputy chief last year, and then I was named the next chief in November. So I'll be taking over in a few months when Chief Perkins, after 35 years, retires. I have 4 awesome kids. My wife's a nurse. My oldest, my daughter's in nursing school now at St. A's. I got a senior in high school who just committed to St. A's as well. And then I have a junior, sophomore in high school, and a 9-year-old in 4th grade. So pretty busy, but an exciting time. I'm psyched to be on this board. I think it's hugely important for the police to be involved and part of the collaboration. I think with so much going on with law enforcement and over the last year, that I think it's an incredible opportunity for information sharing and to kind of, you know, go through a lot of real important issues that I think have been making some really good progress. So I'm really excited to be part of the team and to work with you guys.
Okay, thank you, Deputy. Jeremy Gross. I think you're muted.
Hi, my name is Jeremy Gross. I moved to Wenham pretty late, 2015. I live with my wife and 17-year-old stepdaughter. I have nonprofit board experience. I've sat on the board of a 100-year-old nonprofit for several years, and fairly familiar with Robert's Rules of Order and that kind of thing. Very much looking forward to this. I'm very, very pleased that this group formed, and I'm honored to be part of it.
Thank you, Jeremy. And the last member, but not least, Janet Burt.
Hi, first of all, Kevin, I somehow missed that. You're going to be our new chief. That's very exciting. Good to know we have the chief coming up.
Thank you.
I've been in Wenham in competition with Pat Purdy. We've been here since 1971. I have, in the last couple of years, I'm a member of the CPC, and I was at one point in time the president of the Friends of the Wenham Library. I am an educator. I teach part-time now at Endicott and North Shore Community College. I have done significant work at North Shore Community College, particularly with minority groups and diversity issues that we've dealt with. And I am very much looking forward to this. I also have 2 minority children, adopted children, who are from Guatemala. They are young adults now, very successful, both of them. And I look forward to helping.
Okay. Thank you. And I just want to introduce, though he's not a member of the committee, I see him on the Zoom, the chair of the select board, Gary Cheeseman.
Just listening in tonight, and I just want to thank the initial members of the first ever Human Rights Committee in Wenham. So look forward to your work and your advice to the Board of Selectmen.
Thank you, Gary. Last note is I failed to mention, while being the interim town administrator, I've been being a town manager or town administrator since the early 80s, 81, 82. And most recently, I've retired about a year and a half ago. But previous to that, I have worked with the integration and the creation of human rights committees in approximately, I believe, 3 towns over the years. So they all have different, different charges, different reasons to exist, but they all do good work. So I'm looking forward to working with you while I'm on time here. And if there's any questions and such, feel free to ask me and I'll see what I can do for you. I believe the next is probably we should go to nominations for who wishes to be chair, vice chair, and clerk. Those are the 3 positions on the committee. And I will open up to nominations for chair.
If he's interested, I'd like to nominate Sam as chair.
Sam is honored but not interested. Because I think particularly for a committee that's just getting off the ground, being able to dedicate a lot of time and attention is really important. And I note that we have a number of people with chair experience, but I wonder whether this could be an opportunity for somebody who hasn't chaired a committee before, or who has less chair experience to A, get the experience, but B, maybe also hopefully not be spread as thin as some of us. I really appreciate it. I am too spread thin to chair this.
Okay. You're right about all that's involved, for sure.
I ask a question. Are we going to rotate the chairs? Is it like a 1-year term? Like, how does that work? I know it's sometimes in town they alternate or rotate. And can we talk a little bit about how the chair and the vice chair might work together? It's hard to do a nomination sort of cold, not knowing.
Sure, certainly.
Yeah, great point.
Certainly. Generally, chairs change on an annual basis. Is basically, since we are starting on January 4th, the chair, the vice chair, clerk will probably run through January of 2022. And depending upon how the committee wants to be set up for the duties of the chair, vice chair, generally in the clerk, generally the chair works on running the, operates the committee meetings, works in conjunction with the other members that set up the agendas for the meeting. Vice chair, depending upon how you want to operate, usually runs the meeting in absence of the chair. And the clerk, unfortunately, is the one that generally has to do the minutes and has to take the notes and eventually submit the minutes to the committees for approval and then posting on the website.
Thanks. I know that Pat Purdy is excellent at running things because she runs the elections.
Yeah, I'm not interested in being chair. I'm on a couple of other committees and I'm chair of another committee, and it is a social justice committee too out of town, but I'm not. I would be willing to do a vice chair because that is an important role in case the chair can't fulfill a meeting, but no, somebody else is going to be chair. But thank you. That was very kind of you.
I suspect we have a number of people who would be happy to take the vice chair position.
Right.
Yeah.
How
How
Is there
about
anybody
you,
who wants
Martha?
to be chair?
Martha,
Yeah.
would you want to be chair?
I'd be willing to be chair if nobody.
Okay, I'll
Okay.
nominate you, Martha.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'll second.
I don't know if this
You
is
have a
one of those
second?
nominations where everybody stepped backwards, but I also was kind of gunning for the vice chair role. But I mean, it's hard just because we're a new group. So I'd be happy to be chair. I was the chair of my parish board. I have run, board meetings before. So I feel like with help from you guys and patience, I'm sure we could do it.
Well, and that's the other thing is I think we can all probably try and commit to bringing, our collective experience to bear so that the chair is not
Yeah.
on their own, right?
Yeah,
That
absolutely.
we
Absolutely.
can
Sure.
jump in and help and advise as much as possible.
Do we have any other motions for chair? Hearing none, There's a motion and a second on the floor for Martha as chair of the committee.
I'll second.
You have a second by Pat. Do we have a vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Oh,
Aye.
because we're in Zoom, you do need to, no, this is serious. Under
Yeah,
the
you
open
do need
meeting
to-
law changes, we have to have a roll call vote.
Oh, okay.
So if we could just go, Pat,
Pat, aye.
Sam,
Aye.
and announce your name when I say it. I'm sorry, Tova,
Aye.
and your name also.
Oh, Tova Crystal, aye.
Jeremy,
Jeremy Gross, aye.
Janet,
Janet Bird, aye.
Kevin,
Kevin DiNapoli, aye.
and Martha.
Martha Brennan, aye. I can't say
Okay,
no.
we have a unanimous vote for Martha Brennan as chair.
Thank
Martha,
you.
we will not strand you in.
I know you won't.
Oh.
You guys don't all live very far from me. And Kevin can help me with that, tracking you down too, so.
Okay. That's great. So now do we have any nominations? We open the floor for nominations for vice chair.
It sounded like Pat Purdy thought it was a good idea.
Well, yeah, but I'd be perfectly happy to have somebody else do it, truly.
I think it would be great if Tova did it.
I was thinking the same thing.
Tova would be good.
Yeah.
I think
I
it
would
would be
nominate
good to
Tova.
have, I think it would be good to have a little diversity in generation. If I can put it that
I'll
way.
second
I think
that.
it's all we got.
Okay.
You up for it, Tova?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Excellent.
good.
Thank you.
Do we have a second?
I'll
Second.
second that.
Thank you. All right, we have a motion and a second for Tova, vice chair. Do we have, is the floor open for any other nomination for vice chair? Hearing none, we'll do another roll call vote for vice chair, going from what I see from left to right. And please say your name when you're doing your vote. Pat,
Pat, aye.
Sam,
Sam Nordberg, aye.
Martha,
Martha Brennan, aye.
Jeremy,
Jeremy Gross, aye.
Janet,
Janet Bird, aye.
Kevin,
Kevin DiNapoli, aye.
and last, Tova.
Tova Crystal, aye.
Thank you. Unanimous vote.
Thank you, Tova.
Thank
Is
you.
Tova Crystal as vice chair. And lastly, but probably very important, the clerk's position. To
Could we
take the
clarify
minute-
what the duties of the clerk are?
Oh, generally, well, there's a couple. One, in the unlikely occasion where the chair and the vice chair is not available, the clerk moves to the chairing the meeting. But generally, for the most part, the clerk takes the notes and creates the minutes. And generally, at the next available meeting, the minutes are generally voted on or should be voted on by the committee. Then the minutes become a public document, public record, and are submitted to the town clerk, and they will be posted on the website. And for those who may look at this, it's just a one-year appointment. Okay.
Well, if I would be willing to do it if no one else wants to do it.
Go for it, Janet.
I can do that. That's not a problem.
That's amazing because I don't want to do it.
No, I don't want to do it either.
I'm
I will
good at
say
note.
that
I'm
being
good at
clerk is harder than
note-taking.
being chair, for sure.
Okay, does somebody wish to nominate Janet?
I do.
Okay, I'll nominate too. Second.
Okay, we
Yeah.
have a motion and a second. Do we have any other nominations for clerk? Hearing none, we will go to a roll call vote, starting again with Pat,
Pat Purdy, aye.
Sam,
Sam Nordberg, aye.
Tova,
Tova Crystal, aye.
Martha,
Martha Brennan, aye.
Jeremy,
Jeremy Gross, aye.
Kevin,
Kevin DiNapoli, aye.
and finally, Janet.
Janet Bird, aye.
So we have a unanimous vote for Janet Burt as clerk.
It's a good thing I've already started taking notes when we started.
You were meant to be.
Thank you.
See my notes, you'd know you dodged a bullet.
Okay. I've enjoyed my time as acting chair, but I now wish to turn it over to the permanent chair. Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to this meeting and future endeavors for the committee.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank
Thank you, Tom. All right, it looks like the first thing on our agenda is to have a little discussion about whether we want to have a liaison to the Town of Hamilton's Human Rights Committee.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Or do
No,
you,
the actual agenda was, and I wanted to make sure I had a full board here, was kind of an overview of the committee. I mean, if the chair wishes to do it, or I can just read it directly off the charge that the select board put together.
that's fine. You can read it.
Okay, thank you. This actually began before I came here, and the board did a very good job, so I want to thank the chair and the other two members of the select board for putting this together. The duties of the committee, and I'll paraphrase some of these, there was approximately 10 that they placed. First one was to recommend programs and initiatives to promote diversity, inclusion, awareness, and anti-discrimination in our town. The second one was to promote an understanding of the diverse cultures within our community and surrounding areas by working with non-governmental human rights organizations such as the Hamilton Wenham Human Rights Coalition through education, organization of community events, conferences, public speaking programs, educational panels, celebration, and other community activities. 3 was serve as a resource to the select board with respect to issues that challenge any individual group's enjoyment of their basic human rights in our community. 4th, provide a written report to the board on the community's actions and activities. 5, prepare written or oral reports on racial, religious, ethnic, gender, disability, age, and civic initiatives or relationships, including on police relations, to cultivate and encourage an atmosphere of mutual understanding and harmonious intergroup relationships in the town. 6, recommend resolutions or policy statements for adoption by the board or for the board to recommend for adoption by other departments, boards, and committees within the town. Next is to number 7, collaborate with the Town of Hamilton's Human Rights Commission or other local rights committees or groups to share resources, conduct joint meetings, and make joint recommendations as appropriate on issues concerning the communities in the region. 8, encourage citizen attendance at panels, meetings, conferences, celebrations, or other educational community events held by municipal or regional human rights committees, private or public corporations, organizations, high schools, or universities. 9, serve as a portal for residents or visitors to make a report about concerns, complaints, or questions of real or perceived discrimination or unequal treatment of individuals within the town of Wenham, so that victims and witnesses can feel safe and town officials can investigate such reports, concerns, complaints, or questions. And finally, number 10, while the committee may report and render recommendations on certain issues involving the town, the committee does not have the authority to formally investigate complaints, the power to subpoena witnesses or take sworn testimony, or the power to adjudicate or mediate the resolution of dispute between individuals or entities. You've got a lot on your plate there, and I'm looking forward to seeing what comes out of this. I'm very pleased.
Does anyone have any questions or comments about any of those items?
Just an overall thought that we're going to need to spend some time developing our focus.
Yeah, it's really a shame that we have to be on Zoom because it seems like this would be a great half-day offsite just to kind of figure out what our priorities are. I know that I did some looking around to other towns' human rights committees, and in some other towns, a big focus is that number 9, the portal for reporting potential discrimination and other issues. And some towns have that front and center on the first page of their town website. So I think I think we should do a little bit of research and see what other towns are doing. So that kind of brings me back to that D. Do we want to have a liaison? And I think we probably do with the Town of Hamilton Human Rights Committee. It seems like the easiest position to.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Yeah, important.
So
I'd
I'm
be
not
happy.
sure what you would be happy to do it.
Yeah, yeah.
That sounds good. Is anybody else interested? I don't think,
Yeah,
I think these are
somebody
all
else
open meetings, and I know that Hamilton's Human Rights Committee is also getting themselves off the ground. They got voted in a little bit after us, so they might be a few weeks behind us, but it does seem like cultivating a relationship with
Mhm.
events and things like that would be helpful. So this might just be a matter of checking in with their liaison. I don't think it's going to involve actually attending their meetings as well. It may occasionally.
Do you know if they've established their committee yet? I don't.
I think they're still taking applications. I see that
The
Anna.
call went out for applications recently.
Yeah. Anna, you're on the call. Are you able to comment on that? I know that Anna is involved.
I'm here. I'm at the YMCA and it's super noisy back here. So I don't know if anyone can even hear me.
No, we can.
They've established their commission and they've started accepting applications. It was first announced, I want to say, at the meeting a week and a half ago. Hamilton has a little more regimented process for the turnaround of how long things are posted. So I think it's at least 3 successive select board meetings have to be posted. And then there's a certain waiting period to make sure that people have a chance to apply. So it's a little more slow moving, but it has started because they were first formally announced at the last BOS meeting a couple weeks ago.
Okay, thanks for that.
Okay.
Oh, Martha, you muted yourself.
Sorry, my dog was barking. Thanks for the update, Anna. It sounds like they're a little bit behind us, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't establish a liaison. If Pat, you want to do that, if nobody else wants to jump on that. Jeremy, you'd be,
I could do that.
yeah,
Yeah.
or Pat, I mean, you
Yeah,
guys.
I don't want to steal Pat's thunder, but
No, that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
okay, I'm happy to do that.
So, Tom,
Voted upon?
should we do this as a formal vote because it's a formal officer, so to speak?
Right, you can take that as a formal vote. It's basically somebody moving the action and then there's a.
Okay, so do I have a motion to approve Jeremy Gross as our liaison with the Town of Hamilton's Human Rights Committee?
So moved.
In a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion or other nominations? All right, I'll do a roll call, but I'm gonna do it in my order. So you're up.
Who is?
Pat, sorry, that's you.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure. Kind of.
So all in favor of the motion? So
Aye.
Pat,
Yeah, Pat Purdy, aye.
Sam,
Nordberg, aye.
Tova,
Tova Crystal, I.
Jeremy,
Jeremy Gross, aye.
and Janet,
Janet Burt, aye.
and Kevin.
Kevin DiNapoli, aye.
All right, unanimously approved our liaison position. Okay, so one of the things in the packet, and I hope everyone got a chance to read, was we had 3 letters of interest for a non-voting member of for somebody in for one of the youth in the school system. So I don't know if we should have some discussion about that. It seemed like maybe the middle, to me personally, I just put it out there that the 7th graders seemed a bit young.
I agree. We
Yeah,
have one
it seemed,
schooler.
Right.
yeah, there was one student who seemed more confident in their application and seemed pretty invested. The
That was
others,
sophomore. I think she's a
Mhm.
sophomore.
Yes.
yes.
And that's a good age too.
Yeah, I think that's great. And then she'll
Yeah.
be in the school system for a few years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's great.
Right. So her name is Emma Dixon. She's a sophomore, 16 years old, and enthusiastic about.
Yeah,
The other two nominations were for Claire Adler. I think they're both in 7th grade.
They
Yeah.
are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Claire Adler and
Elida.
Alita Carr.
Alita, yeah.
Yeah.
And then there was Claire.
Adler.
Oh, Adler. Okay.
Yeah. So
Right.
I don't know about you guys, but I felt like the online way to put your letter of interest in doesn't really give them a lot of opportunity to sort of express their interest in the way a letter does. So I feel a little bit like we're shortchanging them, but just from a
They're young, you know.
yeah. It seems like the sophomore might be Emma might be a better. So
I mean,
is this
I suppose if we really wanted to do our due diligence, some of us could volunteer to do some quick interviews with them. If we really want, I mean, what is our purpose in having a student member as part of this committee?
Well, I'm hoping that it's to hear from that high school age group or perhaps younger about issues that they're being confronted with in town. I just think you have to have a little bit of, you know, maybe even some history, some civics, which I don't think they get until high school. I don't know. I just think 7th grade is a little young, but.
I mean, the items might be brought before this board that might be disturbing for a middle schooler to hear. I don't know if that's the case, but somebody at 16 would have enough maturity to handle that better than somebody at, say, 13.
I agree with that, Jeremy, very much so.
Excellent point, Jeremy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, I used to be a high school teacher and I used to be a middle school teacher, and there's
Big
quite a bit of difference
Yeah.
in maturity between the two.
My son, who's a sophomore now, it's really seems, and he's just turned 16, that literally within the last year, he's become much more introspective and asking the cogent questions and kind of really wrapping his head around it a little more.
Yeah.
I didn't notice it until the last year or
Yeah.
so.
So, and Tom, maybe you can answer this question, that this would be sort of a non-voting member and like an observation person?
That's correct. I believe in this, and I might leave this to Gary because they were putting together the committee charge before I came here. But I'm assuming that the student was to be in there for involvement and such, but a non-voting member. Could, you know, discuss items and so forth, but under a non-voting basis. Gary?
Yes, I think it'd be similar if you've ever watched the school committee. The school committee also has a student non-voting member. So I think the board wanted that group or age group definitely to be represented, but you know, with the legal Massachusetts requirements of 18 being legal voting age, you have to differentiate as to who has an actual voting say in the committee. So the student would be a non-voting member, but certainly we'd want to hear all that they represent age-wise and location in the school.
I'd be more than happy to meet with any of the kids or talk to them, or if that helps.
I really do think the whole idea of middle school versus high school and what Gary and Kevin just said, high school student would be much more apt to understand confidentiality.
Mhm.
Not being sure myself, even what kinds of things we will be talking about. Middle school, having taught middle school, and Jeremy, maybe you can confirm this, you teach middle school just because you're crazy. And it's, but when they get to the high school, really after 9th grade, I'd say 10th grade and up, they see the seriousness of issues, they start to reflect more, and they understand that there's value in not going into school the next day and talking about what you heard the night before. I think middle school is just too young.
I'll second that.
Yeah, I agree, although I think all of our meetings are open meetings, so I don't know about the confidentiality thing.
No, I understand that, except that I'm on the committee. I'm in 7th grade, and I'm on the committee, and I was there last night. Been there, done that. That's at middle school. It's like playing telephone. You all played telephone when you were in 3rd grade?
So, I mean, it sounds like we're in agreement that a sophomore member would probably be a good contributor and a good demographic to have and of an appropriate age and maturity to participate. And there's no rule that says that we can't add somebody else if we feel like we need another non-voting
Right.
member later on.
Sure.
I also think a sophomore could reflect on issues that he or she may have also had in middle school.
Sure.
True.
Yeah.
Well, I'll entertain a motion if we want to confirm Emma Dixon as our student non-voting member.
Seconded.
Oh, I'll move it.
Yeah, thank you for moving it, Sam, and we'll take the second from Jeremy.
Oh, sorry.
So we'll do a roll call vote, I guess, because we're roll calling it tonight, but after this, we're only going to do by affirmation.
Pat Purdy, aye.
Sam Nordberg, aye.
Tova,
Tova Crystal, I.
Jeremy,
Jeremy Gross, aye.
Janet,
Janet Burt, aye.
Kevin,
Kevin DiNapoli, aye.
and I'm Martha Brennan, aye as well.
Martha, I'm assuming you were trying to be humorous for that because I don't want to get an open meeting.
Of course I
law
was,
violation.
yes. I know, that's the thing about Zoom. You can't be sarcastic. The wrong way.
You also have to make sure wherever your office is neatly put together.
That's true. You don't want to end up on Room Raider.
I fail that every day. Everyone at my organization has seen my 6-year-old's butt because that's our only downstairs bathroom right back there. So it's a whole new world.
We can have a bring your dog to the meeting night because it seems like a couple of us have dogs barking in the background, but okay, let's see.
Hi, so this is Nikki from the admin office.
Yep.
I can forward Emma Dixon's email to you. Would you like to reach out to her?
Sure. I have it from the packet.
Okay,
It doesn't have the actual email in it. Yeah, if you can forward
Right.
your email, that'd be great.
I certainly will.
I will
Okay,
be
thank
happy to
you.
do that. So now the all important, most important thing we have to do tonight is figure out when we can meet on a regular basis. And that is, I'm guaranteeing is going to be difficult because you guys all look busy.
All right, I'll tell you when I can meet because I'll be the easiest. And you
Okay.
can cross me off. I can meet anytime at 6 o'clock, any night.
And is 6, could you do 7? You mean at 6 or after, or 6 only?
I could do 7, but I would hate to do 7. I have to be in my pajamas by 8:30 with my book.
This is actually Monday from 6 to 8 is actually a pretty good time for me. I don't know if it works on an ongoing basis for others, but we all made it tonight.
Yeah, it's good for me too.
I was going to say that if we could do the first Monday, I have something on the second Monday of every month and I have something on the fourth Monday. So first Monday works for me. I don't know. How about Jeremy and Kevin?
I
Yeah.
always have an 8 o'clock meeting on the first Monday. So I'm presenting. So I've got, after this meeting, I'm presenting at another meeting. Once COVID lifts and I commute from Cambridge. So later would be easier
Better.
for me.
Yeah.
I would probably have to leave work early to be here by 6,
Well, Jeremy, COVID's not lifting anytime soon.
Yeah.
We could kind of say that for the next 6 months, maybe.
Yeah,
Let's cross
Let's
that
do
bridge
that and
when
then
we,
revisit it when the world is maybe returning to some.
Yeah.
Can anybody not do the first Monday at 6? And we'll try to keep it to an hour and a half so that.
yeah, I was gonna say, we shouldn't be, I wouldn't think 2-hour meeting would be necessary.
I can envision maybe in the beginning when we're trying to feel out these different things. It depends how much homework we do in between.
Mhm.
I agree. We've got some committee soul searching to do.
Yeah, I mean, any one of the charges on this list could take a while to discuss.
Mm.
And really just kind of how we want to position ourselves and, where we want to get our information and how we want to do our outreach. I
Is
see
that
this-
list in the emails that were sent out?
It's in the packet. that,
Okay, it is. That's perfect then. Thank you.
I have a recommendation. I don't know how people feel about technology, but there are technological tools that allow us to communicate asynchronously during the week so that we can talk without the need to immediately respond over the course of our busy lives, so that by the time we do meet, we have communicated throughout the month. There's a tool I use called Lumio that's great for time polling and informally voting when you don't need to vote in person and having discussions. I don't know what kind of budget we have to.
Looks like he knows.
yeah, I'm guessing there's some open meeting laws issues.
Yeah, I was gonna say, that would be a violation of open meeting law.
Okay, yeah, fair enough, fair enough.
Okay.
Yeah.
Except, yes, if you're doing it as a group setting, it would be a violation of the open meeting law. But as chair, you may be able to create some subcommittees. And then we could review it to see how they would have to operate within the open meeting law, depending upon how you set it up. But
Right.
generally, as a group, for all 6 members, you could not meet outside of the open meeting law.
And right, and correct me, Tom, isn't there like, if there's more than 3 people, they can't talk about it? Isn't there like a number or more than 50%? Like if I met Pat on the street, we could talk about it, just the 2 of us, or can we never talk about stuff without everybody
Okay.
present?
Being the former chair of the Town Manager State Ethics Commission, I can give you the answer for that one. If Martha speaks to Pat, generally not an open meeting law violation. Pat talks to Tova and says, oh, by the way, this is what Martha said. And then she speaks to Jeremy. If you have a group conversation, even though all 6 were not, or actually 7, I shouldn't keep forgetting about Deputy there. But if all 7 were in the room, it's a violation. But even if all 7 weren't, and you had basically a group conversation that way, that's a violation. And depending how you set up your subgroup, if let's say Sam and Jeremy were working on a project to bring back to the full board, yeah, I would review it to make sure that that may not be a violation. But if you have a group consecutive conversation, that would be a violation.
What about group emails to set up meeting times?
That's okay. Agendas, setting up agendas and meeting times are fine. But discussing the subject matter on the proposed agenda, if you can't do that.
Okay, that's what I thought. So that does it does make it so that we really do need to meet.
I'm going to suggest we're going to have a couple of long meetings to begin with,
Yeah.
because I don't even know how we pick a place to start without having some robust dialogue about the purpose, the driving purpose behind the committee. It's such a broad mandate. I don't know how we focus without a lot of candid conversation.
Right. I think we need to do some brainstorming and really looking into the charge and see where we want to prioritize and things. Does other people feel that way too?
Mhm.
So, okay, so it sounds like I'm hearing the first Monday could work, 6 o'clock. And we'll maybe try to block out 6 to 7:30. So Janet can get in her pajamas and Jeremy can switch his presentation or whatever.
Listen, I am okay with people attending this meeting in their pajamas, cup of tea, like that sounds fine.
No, that was a 2-part, Sam. Pajamas in my book.
All right.
I know, who among us has not done a Zoom in their pajamas during the pandemic? I mean, I think that's
Yeah, you're only seeing me from the waist up.
Me
exactly
too.
so true. Okay, so that would put us, let me just grab my calendar here. That would mean for February, we'd be getting together on the 1st. So we'll put that in. And then maybe the first 6 months, for February through like June, we'll do the first Monday. And I'll send that out as an agenda email and include Nicole, right? Because we'll have to get our meetings posted. Now, I have an administrative question. How do we handle the Zoom? Is there always a Town of Wenham person who creates the Zoom and starts the meeting for us?
There is, but one thing I'm trying to do now is I'm trying to learn how to be the person who sets it up. So hopefully by your first meeting in February, I won't have to have my team take the time out of their workload at home.
Okay.
Set it up.
They can set up the Zoom meeting for the next 6 dates with one
Right, they
setup.
could do it as a recurring and we can use the
Right.
same link.
And you just put in the 6 dates, and at least that would be 6 dates, Tom, that they'd be done.
Okay, that's good. And then overview of action planning steps. Maybe we have a little more time. I know probably want to try to keep it to 7 or 7:15. We could do a little brainstorming now about our action planning steps. Sam, you seemed like you had some good thoughts about how we might proceed. You want to kick it off with a brain dump?
Okay. So my brain dump comes from the context of trying to figure out an organizational response at Reliant, which has 3,000 employees, as well as sort of an organizational response with a mental health focus. There's plenty of overlap. I am of the opinion that one of the first things that needs to happen is that there needs to be the development of strong shared language and shared understanding for having conversations, because otherwise it's very easy to talk past one another. And so there's a little bit of a crash course in how to talk about and the science behind bias, racism, stereotyping, all of that stuff that I think probably would be really important as a foundation for a committee such as this. And I would imagine that might actually provoke a fair amount of intercommittee debate that we would need to work through. And that would also give rise for us to ideas about, the application of that science, of that information to our own community and sort of where we might need to strike first. And bring our attention to bear. That's sort of, I'll stop there. I have a planning mind. I could go on forever about this stuff, but I think that's foundational.
I agree with you, Sam, completely. We all need to be on the same page as far as what different language means. We all need to be talking the same language.
Yeah, I agree. I think I'm just trying to figure out how we might engage in that. And this is doing some shared readings in between, and having that kind of.
That would be my suggestion. Like
Yeah.
I belong to an accountability group that started about 8 months ago, and we've been trying to do those readings and have those conversations. There is so much.
Right.
Yeah.
That you can do, and I think that there are a number of sort of greatest hits for for white people that we hit all those bases as a Caucasian committee trying to represent diversity in Wenham. We should probably put in the work to make sure that we have discussed things like white privilege and bias and stereotyping, and run through a lot of the science on those things so that we've got a really good handle on an agreement on those particular concepts. That would be my thinking.
As part of our NAACP group, we've been doing some book talks and book and movie talks about some of those very issues. We read White Fragility, and we watched I Am Not Your Negro, and we're going to be watching The Hate You Give, like a lot of discussion. And that that group itself is a predominantly white group, and there's sort of in the common parlance, they say it's racism has to be addressed by white people. We're the ones that perpetuate it. So I think that's a good place to start. It's a big, like you said, there are greatest hits, and also I don't think we need to be cognizant of racism isn't the only thing that our committee is charged
That's
with.
right.
So
I think that's important too. Yeah.
That's why I brought up bias and stereotyping, because
Yeah.
those things operate across a whole bunch.
Absolutely.
They operate across sex, across
Gender
sexual
expression.
orientation,
Yeah.
across religion, all sorts of different areas. There goes my 3-year-old. He's going to the bathroom. So
That's great.
Right, and I think that even prioritizing those kinds of things within the framework of the group is going to be a challenge. It's almost like to get a pulse of what's happening. I mean, I know from friends that still have kids in high school that, there's all kinds of things that are going on there that are microcosm of other prejudices and biases that are around. And so how do we identify and address and let people know that we hear them, we see them, and that we want to try to make this place better.
It is unfortunate. We do have minorities in town, but none on the committee, which is unfortunate.
we do what you just did, right? We acknowledge that right out front.
Exactly.
We own it, right? And then we try to do better in future years and make this a place where people will feel confident and comfortable putting their names forward and joining.
Right.
Well,
Tova, you were going to say something.
Yeah, like I think to that, we also acknowledge that we're not the experts. Like we are here to kind of find out how our town feels and help convey that to our local government and try to, uplift and be supportive for those in our community who need that support. So I think that too is important. And then I was also wondering if possibly the Hamilton Wenham Human Rights Committee, or I might have that name wrong, but if I'm not sure if they've done, I know they have a lot of different subcommittees, and I'm wondering if maybe we could talk to them and see if they what their read is on the major issues in our town right now, and see if they have any ideas on that of where to start or what's really important at this moment.
Yeah, I think that this committee is actually an offshoot of work that the Hamilton Wenham Commission did. That one of the things that they learned early on was that having an actual government, body in the town can move the issues forward more than just a group of like-minded people who want to do well, and so that was the effort that group put into getting this committee formed and the Hamilton committee formed. So great steps so far. This all started, after the death of George Floyd.
Right. Might I also suggest that 2 towns that I've looked into, because I know of people in both these towns who are on Human Rights Committee, that you go to the Needham website and you go to the Lexington.
Oh, I've been to both. They're great.
They have done a great, particularly Needham, very, very impressive. And the other thing, Andover has just come together with a committee called Andover Diverse. Now they did something that's a little different. They actually had a consultant. They worked with a consulting group, but which I don't think we would have the funds to do, but it wouldn't hurt to talk to somebody from Andover Diverse, because they have incorporated the whole community into this. And it just seems to me that would be something where we're a much smaller community. It would be easier for us to work through the schools, the library, the town government, but to follow sort of what their path to getting this done was, because it's outstanding. So, I mean, yeah, we can read a ton, but maybe it would be easier just to go to some other communities and read how they have, made it work.
I'm
Tom.
always in favor of stealing from others who have done
Yeah,
things
me
really
too.
well.
I'd be right
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Definitely. I also checked out Lynn. Lynn has a reporting portal on their website for incidences. So I just, like all of these different things,
Yeah.
we might not be big enough to have that, but
Yeah.
all these things.
But we can certainly pull from all these other communities, and do read the Needham and the Lexington, because they're really very, very well done, I think. I
So I
learned a
think-
lot.
I think that's good homework.
Yeah.
So maybe for our next meeting that we can really dig in. You come to the next meeting with some, go ahead, Tom.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Nope, go ahead.
I've got to learn you're the chair.
Yeah.
Pat, you chose two excellent communities in Needham and Lexington. They're very progressive. I've known them, many friends for years.
Oh, good to hear
Those
that. Yeah.
are two very good choices to
Yeah.
use as role models in this process.
Well, I wonder if we could even at some point, maybe even invite someone. I have a contact at the Needham, but just to brainstorm and just have an overview of what they've done and what they found successful, where they have been in existence obviously longer than we have.
I think that's great. I think I think it would be totally appropriate to extend an invitation.
Mm-hmm.
May I be an annoying academic and make another suggestion for
Yes,
homework?
please.
My suggestion would be that each one of us take at least one of the Harvard implicit association tests, either the black-white skin color implicit association test, or they have another one that I'm thinking of. There's there's a skin tone and a race. The skin tone one shows you pictures. The race one pairs words. And implicit associations are just it's a test that basically measures the way in which your brain is structured and the way in which your wiring is designed and reinforced, such that certain things are paired faster in your brain than other things. It is literally just a physical manifestation of the way in which our brains categorize, chunk, and bias information.
Is it just racial, or is it?
Oh no, they have a ton of different tests. I'm going to send you the link to Harvard's official site. It's in the chat.
Okay.
There are like 20 different implicit association tests, and so there are many different ones that you can take. They're all more or less humbling, and important as members of this committee, I think, just to be aware of how our brains work.
Well, should we pick a couple instead of? I mean, how many are there?
I don't think we need to expect people to share their results here. It's really just a primer for all of us on this notion that our brains have architecture that actually just lends itself to bias and categorization and stereotype.
Right, isn't it kind of part of evolution, right? We needed to categorize things quickly when we were being chased in the.
Oh God, yeah, no, absolutely. I could
It's-
go on my spiel
Yeah.
that I do for my anxiety skills work groups, but yeah, no, it's totally, it makes complete sense, right? You have to be able to identify threats quickly and dismiss those threats quickly, and you can train yourself to be better and better at identifying threats
Right.
and excluding non-threats. But it takes practice, it takes work.
Right.
And what people don't realize is we build these skills whether we deliberately practice them or not. We all have, ways of determining the difference between a threat and not a threat, right? And those are they're implicit, they're wired into our brains. They can be changed, but it's important to know what they are. And that's
and we're socialized
What's
to
that?
perceive. We're socialized to perceive certain skin tones, for example, as a threat or not. Right? Is that what you're saying? Like based on
maybe
bias and stereotype.
And it can be just about everything, right? So
Sure. Oh, well, right. Yes.
right, just as we're able to see like a plush armchair and a tiny little stool and say, oh, well, those are both chairs, right?
Mm-hmm.
We can see a variety of different things and say, well, those are all threats, right? And what falls in that category depends on your experience, your socialization, your education, all of those complex things. The IAT basically gives you a snapshot into whether or not your brain is biased. Spoiler alert, it is. and how that bias works. And it's very helpful because the research is once you're aware of your bias, you can actually make choices about what you do with it. But if you're unaware of it, then you can't actually make those choices.
Super fascinating.
Yeah, it's really interesting research.
I think, Pat and I have had some really good chats, and I think what's so important for this group is honesty with each other and trust with each other, because if we need both, and we need both 100% in order for this to be effective, because I don't think we're going to get much accomplished. And I feel like an added, I don't want to say burden because that comes off as a negative connotation, but I feel like I have an added responsibility with all that's been going on. And I think there are going to be a lot of questions for me, and I don't take it lightly. And some, I certainly agree with, and some I don't. And I think if I take the hard line of kind of just towing the politically correct role of this is it and saying it black and white and not being honest and clear, I think if we do that on each side, I don't think we're going to get out of this what we really want to get out of it. And I don't know, hopefully I articulated that okay.
Well,
Yeah, you did, Kevin. You did. Yeah.
I think what the science indicates is that there aren't hard and fast black and white rules. That's actually not how our brains work. Our brains work based on probabilities, and then they draw conclusions that appear black and white, right? And what we need to do is we need to sit in that uncomfortable middle ground of uncertainty, and embrace that uncertainty and just do our best, transparently, openly, and I suspect that if we're doing our jobs right, we should spend a lot of time feeling uncomfortable and like we've never had to make this kind of decision before, and that we're just doing our best.
That's awesome.
I think that's well said. What I'm hearing Sam say is that, we're going to make mistakes, and Kevin, it's okay if we make mistakes. And also that you and I might not have the same opinion on a certain subject, but that's not going to impede us from working together, because we're here to make the town and people in the town that haven't felt seen and heard, make them know that they are seen and heard, and that they can bring.
And that they're also safe. I think we all should feel safe in this group. And I think that the people in the community that may come to us need to feel safe and respected and heard. And I don't think that's something people in town are feeling right now necessarily.
Right. And I think we shouldn't strive to be perfect. I think we should to do our best, and that we recognize that we will make mistakes. We will stick our foot in it sometime. We will use a word that maybe was great in the 70s, but doesn't work so great now. And I say that, I'm sure Tova knows more than I do, because the language is evolving. And
I think that's something too, like as it's hard to get like a comprehensive list of like literal terms that are being used right now in so many different like topics of conversation, but just as they come up, we can correct each other and just know that that's coming from a place of helping each other and not from criticism.
Right.
Yeah.
I know.
Good point.
I'll just use an example of, that oftentimes people will say people of color instead of saying African American or Black, thinking that they're being more inclusive. And then had a friend who was Black correct me and say, actually, when you say people of color, I feel erased, because now I'm in this group that includes Indigenous people and Latinx people. And not that there aren't times when the term people of color is appropriate, but it shouldn't be the default. And it like brought back to me that even when you think experience with it, the language is evolving, and sometimes you have to really read your audience, or at least know that there are possibilities. And once you let go of, oh my God, I said the wrong thing, and they're going to think I'm a terrible person. You know what? We've all been there, and we all just have to do our best. And I think that's the hardest thing, to be okay with being uncomfortable, like Sam said.
And Martha, I think your point is well taken too, because it's a reflection of who we're talking to. We say that incorrect thing. We are a whole group of white people right here on this committee, and we're going to do what we can do. And we're going to make mistakes, because there are minorities in town that I'm sure most of you have seen something on Facebook, things people write that maybe it was last fall, maybe 3, 4, 5 months ago, there was a whole harangue of stuff that was horrifying.
Right.
That just, and we need to deal with that.
Mhm.
Right. And some people's diversity is not visible. It can be
Exactly.
neurological, it can be,
Oh, age, the
It can
age
be-
is going on right now a lot in,
yeah.
socially.
So I think
Age
we're all,
discrimination.
right. I think we all are aware that it's not just the color of your skin, that that's just the thing that's been most prevalent this past
Right.
term. But I don't want to lose sight of the fact that there are a lot of other ways that people are feeling outside of the main. But
A very good
Martha,
point.
yeah, I really like your statement of, we're not trying to be perfect here. In fact, where white people need to go is they need to, sort of, give up the privilege of just sitting back and not doing anything, get in there and make some mistakes and
Right.
feel embarrassed and deal with the fear of saying the wrong thing. And that is where I think this committee has an opportunity perhaps to lead by example, since these are public meetings.
Right.
And, I imagine that I, for example, will have an opportunity to say, I'm sorry, I screwed that up big time. And I learned from it and I will do better, in the future. And that's a real opportunity for us, I think, to use this public forum as a way of showing how white people in particular can set aside that privilege and take those risks and then take ownership of those mistakes when we make them.
Right. I think one of the worst things we could do is assume a white savior attitude, like that we've got all the answers and that we can fix it. That would be not helpful.
But I'd also interject that it may not be just race.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely.
And I think we're talking a lot about race, which is fine and great, but I think we also have to acknowledge that other things are more likely to present themselves. And I think the other thing I wanted to ask Martha is there going to be, or how do people feel about having an opportunity for public questions or input at the beginning of a meeting? Is that something that?
I 100% want to be transparent and available for questions at any meeting. So absolutely.
Yeah, I would like to suggest that we set, a few minutes aside at the beginning of every meeting for questions or comments. I think transparency is extremely important.
Yep. Unless anybody objects.
We serve the citizens of Wenham, and therefore our meetings are at their disposal. We serve them. So we should make ourselves available to the citizens of Wenham.
Yeah.
And is there a way that we can let people know that when we're meeting, other than just putting it on a calendar?
Yeah,
Well,
we-
it's the town website. It'll be on the agenda that,
Is there any restriction of us posting our meetings on the Facebook town groups?
We officially have to post it here. Wherever else you wish to post it is fine.
It could be put on the wonderful world of Wenham, for
Yep.
sure.
And Pat, to your point, we can just have all of our agendas. We'll start with a public comment period.
Yeah, good idea.
Be a good
You know,
thing.
I think we want to make people feel like they can come to our meeting and have a chance to talk.
The one thing, Martha, you should do which is great, I think you really should have public comment and questions in the beginning, but you should set up how the committee is going to handle that, is whether if a public comment, we will listen, and if we need to put it on a future agenda, we'll do it there, versus basically going into a full scale discussion at that point.
Right. Yep.
Should we
Well,
also,
That being said, I'm sorry, Pat. I have a
go ahead.
question. Martha, my first question was, if we're going to post it, say, a week ahead of time on Facebook after it's already been posted wherever, would that be something you would want me to do?
Oh, are you volunteering?
Well, I was just thinking, if I'm doing the note taking, that might be
Yeah,
on my
I mean,
mind.
I would love that. I think.
All right, and my second question is, I don't want this to sound like I'm trying to avoid public input, but since we're only getting started, do we want to wait till after our next meeting when we sort of get a little more organized before or do you want to start it in February? Because maybe people will come in and say, wait, I think you should talk about X.
Yeah, I kind of would lean toward let's just start it because maybe there is this groundswell or something that we're not aware of. And somebody
Yeah.
might look at that first meeting and say, you know what, guys, there's something going on that you guys need to dig your teeth
Okay,
into."
that
So-
sounds good.
And we'll set a time limit. And to Tom's point, I think it's a good idea to say we can listen and write it down and leave your contact information. And, you know, especially as a new committee, we don't have a process yet for.
Right.
What about also, should we have a direct connection to the Human Rights Coalition, or should we just trust that they will advocate for things that they think are important for us to hear about?
Someone asked that earlier, right? About, was it Tova? About they're not a government body, right? So we could maybe reach out to them if they want to have an observer at our meetings. I don't know. What do people?
I mean, I definitely think it makes sense to, however formally, I'm not sure if it needs to be like super official, but to have a line of communication open. Like, I'd be happy to reach out and just say like, okay, are there any things that you guys want us to be initially aware of, or like, what are your thoughts?
Okay.
I think that makes a lot of sense.
Should that be an ongoing, like a liaison to that committee, just to check in every now and then, Tova?
That's sort of what I was wondering.
Yeah.
And I don't think it has to be formal. I don't think.
No, just to check
Right.
in.
I think
And
that's a
Tova-
great
Tova-
idea.
My
Sure.
wife's on the committee, so I don't think I can avoid it anyway.
Oh, cool.
She's the secretary, so
Oh.
I'll get notes.
Okay.
That's good. I think that's good.
Yeah, I do
Perfect.
too. I think it's very good.
Martha?
Yes.
And I actually may go to Gary on this because I've never been through a Wenham town meeting before. But does your town meeting allow boards and committees to make reports to the town meeting members?
So I think the short answer is it typically has not been in the town meeting agenda unless there is a particular money or a warrant article associated with it. That typically the committees report on an annual basis by way of the town report, the hard
Okay.
book.
Because,
You'll note in the charge here that this committee is tasked to at least annually report back to the board with what they know, kind of.
okay, because generally, particularly in my own experience, and towns differ from town to town, but new committees in some cases do report back to the annual town meeting with a 5-minute report of maybe what they've done or what they anticipated, because they actually have somewhat of a crowd there who may have not been watching their meetings, but that's up to the board and the board of select board to make a decision, and the moderator, how you handle that. But they've had that, generally has been done like that in the past in some of my cases.
All right. So let me make sure we haven't. Anything else that anybody wants to bring up before we adjourn, now that we do have our next meeting set, and we've got a little homework from Sam. Sam, I thought you were going to suggest earlier that everybody take a town with the Human Rights Committee and do some research on it based on what Pat said about Needham and Lexington, but that's also available for people. And Kevin, you might have some connections just through the police force, right, of other people that are in your role on their respective towns.
Absolutely. I can put that down to reach out to my colleagues.
Yeah, because it would be
and
interesting to
someone-
know what the role of the, that different committees see the role of the liaison with the police department.
Yeah, sure, for sure.
Because I'm sure it varies. And so it would just all be in sort of, we're all in the kind of information gathering mode.
Yep.
Also, Martha, and this is just, I don't know if this would work, but is there a way to introduce this committee via the wonderful world of Wenham, that we exist, that we've had our first meeting, and just a little introduction? Would that be something that you'd be interested in?
Yeah, I think that sounds like a good idea. Maybe
I think a charm offensive is a great idea to
Yeah.
try and get people in the community more aware that,
Yeah, because otherwise,
um,
how are they going to even know we exist, really?
yeah.
yeah, maybe we can each do like a 2-sentence bio and then like combine that with a little bit of the charge. Janet, maybe we can talk offline if it's just the two of us about that. Tom,
yeah.
is that okay? If
Yeah,
it's-
I think that would really be important to give ourselves a little publicity.
So,
No, and to inform the community, really.
right. Yeah, I think that would be a great idea. A charm offensive, Sam. I like that.
Yeah. And just the wonderful world of Wenham. I mean, I don't think it has to go to the Hamilton Wenham Facebook page, but maybe others disagree.
No, you know what? It gets really confusing, the Hamilton Wenham page, over every issue, whether it's a good one or a bad one. I never know what town the person lives in.
Yeah, so just keep it to the Wenham, wonderful world of Wenham.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, I don't know, actually. Now I wonder, like, isn't this the mess that we're supposed to be wading into? I don't want to just, abdicate our responsibility right off the bat. I agree that it would be a mess. But maybe that's the mess we should be wading into.
I don't understand what you mean, Sam.
I mean, if we post on the Hamilton Wenham page, there will undoubtedly be more responses and maybe some challenging responses. But I'm sort of wondering, like, isn't that what we should be doing? Is evoking those responses, generating those conversations and sort of advocating for at least the sort of transparent, open, sort of taking on of these challenging questions.
If
Well,
we
the
were going to vote, I would vote to wait a while because I'm at the point where I can't even look at that Hamilton Wenham page because someone starts with a legit question about something and it morphs into this horrifying off subject. So, and then I find myself saying, wait, oh, this is a Wenham issue. Wait,
Right.
I happen to know that person lives in Hamilton.
Yeah.
And then whatever and I'm not
let's
blaming
start-
Hamilton, it just becomes a mess.
Let's just start with Wenham because I think that was one of the whole points of having the wonderful world of Wenham is a way for a platform for Wenham residents to communicate. But I mean, and I agree, Janet, it gets out of control with, I've stopped, I just do wonderful world of Wenham now. That's all
Me
I
too.
do.
I know that there are a lot of people as younger than us that don't use Facebook though.
Right.
So Tova, I'm looking at you saying,
Nova.
where else? I'm making a TikTok video. We're not there yet.
No,
Eventually.
I mean, I would say that Facebook is still like, I mean, when you get to like my age, like people are still on Facebook and like, but I would say like high schoolers don't really use Facebook right now. However, like the other social media platforms, there aren't groups like the same way
Okay.
Facebook does. So I still think that's the best way. But I'm not sure like if, for instance, if the Hamilton Wenham like Human Rights Committee has an Instagram, I'm not sure if they do, but if they do, maybe they could give us like a shout out and like
Oh,
that
that's
kind
a
of
good
thing.
idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good
So
idea.
I can ask them about that.
Yeah, because they're very savvy. Their Facebook page looks really good. Their branding
Yeah.
is good.
Mm.
Yeah.
Plus, we've got to remember that this is, I think of the wonderful world of Wenham too, as more of a civics oriented kind of a
Right.
platform and involving, hopefully. So, I mean, I just think that is, to start with, way, that's where I would.
I'm laughing, Pat, because I know it's because it's new and it just hasn't devolved into what the Hamilton Wenham page can devolve into, but maybe they haven't discovered us yet on the wonderful world of Wenham.
Well,
Well, at least you're dealing with Wenham residents who I think have a legit, I mean, they can say what they want. It's their town, but you don't always have to respond either.
that's the key, is understanding you are now a governmental committee.
Yeah.
So they're responding on social media, and I'm just learning now about the wonderful world of Wenham. Didn't know that was a site existing. You just have to be more cognizant of what you're responding to.
Mhm.
If it's a certain particular issue, you can say,
Oh, no,
we can, put it up on
no, I'm just
our
talking
agenda,
about
but
advertising.
very,
and this. That's all.
cognizant of what you're
Yeah.
responding to and how you're doing it.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds good. I think we will start there and start with other affinity groups. I'll certainly put something on our NAACP group page. We can post on the Hamilton Wenham Human Rights Commission. I don't know if there are other groups that people have
Maybe.
access to locally that might make sense to just let people know that we're here.
Yeah, I would reach out to Nagley.
To who? Sorry?
Nagley, Nagly. That's the North Shore Gay Lesbian Organization.
Okay,
Oh, that's a good one.
that's a great one.
It's a great one.
Yeah.
Also, I wonder, I mean, even religious groups would be another place to let people know.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if my synagogue is the feeder synagogue for our area, but I can tell my rabbi about it.
Certainly First Church would be receptive there.
Yep.
Also, we do still have a fair amount of work figuring out sort of like,
What we're doing,
yeah,
yeah.
who are
Yeah.
we? What do we stand for? You know,
So maybe,
and-
maybe we just start on the
Wonderful. Yeah.
you know,
Wonderful
I-
World of Wenham Facebook page and just say, here we are and here's how you reach.
Yeah.
us.
Like I for one am really hopeful we can give Kevin the floor at some point, and that, you know, Kevin can voice to us sort of what are the challenges you're seeing, and the opportunities for a group like us to be helpful. I think that that would be a great
it would.
topic for us
Yeah.
to dive
How
in.
about our next meeting?
Yeah, I was not proposing it for tonight.
No,
I know it's 7:23.
One more question for Tom I would have is, do we have a dedicated email that people can use right now? Or how do people get in touch with us to get agenda?
I can look into that for you.
I
Generally.
don't know what other committees do, so I'm
Yeah,
asking.
generally, they set up their own dedicated email address. So I'll take a note of that to check into this week.
That's a great idea.
Okay, yeah, that way we can put that in there, be one. I mean, I'm happy to set up a Gmail, but I don't want to do anything outside of the town
So,
rules.
because it's important, because technically, the emails become a public
Right.
record. So I highly recommend to set up, if we can do that, set up a
Yeah.
public account for you versus your private accounts.
Exactly, yeah, no, that's why I asked, because I would want to have that to put in our wonderful world, you know, to put in our sort of charm offensive. But we're approaching 7:30 and I appreciate everybody's patience tonight. And I think this is a great first meeting.
Yeah, really good.
Agreed.
Yeah,
I would like to just thank Gary because I know Gary worked really hard to get this off the ground.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Gary.
thanks, Gary.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you, and we all saw to pass that same thank you on to Anna Sizek, who and the coalition that really started this off.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it seems like it's going to be a great group and one day we'll all meet in person.
Yeah.
Great, so I'll send around some group emails anyway, just to get things in terms of agendas and things like that. And maybe Janet, when you have the minutes, we'll want to get those out relatively soon because there were some to-dos in there.
I hope I got all the to-dos. Martha, I put my phone number in the
I
chat
saw
for you
that.
if we were going to talk about
Okay, and I can.
whatever. I didn't write down what we were going to talk about. I figured you would remember it.
Yeah, what I'll do is maybe we can exchange phone numbers with, in that group email that they sent out originally, just so if we do need to get in touch with one another, at least have that. I think that falls under administrative and agenda creation, right? That group email. Okay,
Martha, I think you're going to be a great chair. So
Oh.
thank you.
thanks.
And Tova, you'll be a great vice chair for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
Tova's
you.
going to be great too. All right,
Yeah.
so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I'll second.
I think we can do a voice. Oh, wait.
Oh, all right.
Oh,
Vote. Oh, is this because of the Zoom thing? Tom,
Sorry,
because-
If it's a
Because
Zoom
Zoom,
thing,
we-
we have to still do a
Okay.
roll
all
call
right,
vote. Roll-
Pat Purdy, you're up.
Pat Purdy, move to adjourn.
Sam Nordberg, aye.
Tova,
Tova Crystal, I.
Jeremy,
Jeremy Gross, aye.
Janet,
Janet Burt, aye.
Kevin. Oh, no,
Kevin.
Kevin. Oh.
Kevin DiNapoli, aye. My battery's dying.
Oh, no. See, we have to adjourn. And Martha Brennan, aye. I think that's unanimous.
Yes. Thank you very much.
All right.
All
Thanks
right.
a lot, everyone.
everyone.
Really looking forward to
Bye-bye.
working with you.
Good night,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Nice to meet you guys.
Nice to meet you too. Bye.
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 Bye-bye.